Right, we're all good to go. So, if you are watching this as a replay, welcome. And if you are joining me live, welcome. Now, this session, I'm going to be opening up my kitchen and showing you all my baking and my cake decorating tools. The reason why I decided to do this live is that tools is actually a very important part of baking and cake decorating that many people don't talk about. When you watch a YouTube video or read a cake blog, there's always an assumption that you've already got the tools that you need. And sometimes it's never even mentioned. So you actually don't realize that you don't have the equipment and the tools that you need. And sometimes the reason why you're struggling with your cakes or your cake results are not great, or when you're decorating your cake, you're really, really struggling, is because you haven't got the right tools. If you fall into that category, by the end of this live session, you will be very clear about what tools that you need to get. Also, you need to figure out and know exactly what tools you need to get. And sometimes that is not easy. And a lot of us have been there. I've actually had to downscale my equipment and give away quite a lot of tools in the past because I bought lots of things that were the it thing, or I saw a pro baker use it and it looked interesting, and I bought loads and loads of stuff that some of them I never actually used and I gave it away. And actually in my stats there are still some things that I have that I've kept, hoping that one day I will use, but actually I still haven't used them. So, money is a big factor because some of these tools, some of them are not expensive, some of them are, and they all add up. So you want to be buying the stuff that you actually need and the stuff that you are going to use. So this live session is going to give you clarity on what tools that you need, both for making your cake and for your decorating processes. It's also going to save you money. One, because you're not going to be wasting money buying stuff that you don't need. And also, I'm going to be giving you an insight as a pro baker on the things where you don't actually have to spend a lot of money. So you can buy some tools, you can buy the basic version and it will work just as well as the expensive one. So with that insight, you're not going to be buying stuff and paying more than you need. And then on the other hand, there are some things where paying more money to get better quality equipment will actually save you in the long run, because one, your cakes will turn out better, so you're saving money, because each time you're making a cake you're not getting cake disasters, because actually every time you have a cake disaster, that's wasted money, because all the ingredients that you have spent on that cake, all the money you spent on the cake ingredients is all wasted. So you don't want to be wasting money in that respect. And also you want to be buying like the quality equipment that will last you a lifetime. Like some of my more expensive tools I've had for years and they are still in good nick, and I probably will be able to pass it over to my kids later on, or give somebody, because they are going to last a lifetime. So it is worth knowing those sort of tools so that you can splurge on those tools. Right. So on what I'm going to do first, we're going to start from the beginning. We're going to be starting on the tools that you need for the baking process. It's a common myth that you need big, expensive, lots of tools to make a cake. And I want to burst that myth straight away. That is actually not true. You need a few basic tools and you are ready to make a cake. I'm also going to mention that I have put together a comprehensive guide on the different tools, which go into details on the tools and also give you a shopping list so that when you want to buy your tools, it's much easier. So it's only $7 and the link is showing below the description. So if you want to grab that, that's going to serve as a useful tool for you going forward. If you've got any questions, if you're on this live and you've got some questions, put it in the live chat. If you're watching this as a replay, don't worry, you've not missed anything out. If you put your comments in the comment section, then I will give you a reply. So if you have any burning questions on cake tools, tools for cake decorating, either stuff that I've covered that you want a bit more information, if you want recommendations of where I've purchased my tools, I will help you out. Just drop it in the comment section and I'll be sure to answer you. And if you're watching live, just drop me a hello. It's quite encouraging to hear from you any questions that you may have. Okay, so let's get started. You want to make a cake. What are the absolutely essential tools that you need to make your cake? First of all, you need tools for weighing. Unlike cooking, you can eyeball your measurements, add a dash of salt, add a dash of this. I don't think many people, when they're cooking, actually measure. You just kind of go with vibes and go with the feel. And that works for cooking. But let me tell you something. If you are baking with vibes, a dash of this, a dash of flour, a dash of salt, or baking powder, you're setting yourself up for a disaster. Like cake ingredients, you've got to measure it properly and correctly. If you watch my video where I go in detail on cake ingredients, you'll understand the importance of making sure that you use your ingredients properly. So you need to be able to measure. Now, if you look at different recipes, they will usually come in two different weighing formats. They might come in metrics, which is like in grams or kilograms, or in some countries like the USA, the use of cups is quite popular. Personally, and this is what I do, and what I would advise you is to measure in grams because it is more accurate. 10 grams is 10 grams, whereas 1 cup may not actually be the same because cups, there's a little bit more to it. So I would say get a weighing scale, a digital weighing scale. Now, this is one equipment that doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be functional. And this is something that I bought in my local supermarket. It did not cost me much at all. I think it was about £15. And you'll have it for years. This one is about 3 years old because I dropped my old one and the top is made of glass and it cracked. So I had to buy another one. Otherwise, this is something that will last you for years if you treat it well. And when you are buy one that measures in different units. So my scale measures in grams, it measures in milliliters, it measures in ounces. So that is more versatile. You always will use a weighing scale when you are baking. It's also handy to have cups because, like I said, some recipes measure in cups. So these are measuring cups and they come in different sizes. So 1 cup up to half a cup, and you use this in measuring your ingredients. See if we've got any questions so far. Okay, so no questions, but if you've got any questions, just drop it in the comment section. Right, so your weighing scale and measuring cups. Then when you want to measure your smaller ingredients, so when you're measuring your baking powder, vanilla, things like that, you want to be using measuring spoons. So these are measuring spoons. Again, they come in different gradations from tablespoons, half a tablespoon, 1 teaspoon, and up to an eighth of a teaspoon. So these are useful, are used for measuring smaller ingredients like your baking powder, spices, flavoring, vanilla, things like that. So you'll need these as well. And both the measuring spoons and measuring cups, they don't cost much. You can buy them from anywhere. As long as they have clear markings, you don't need to buy expensive one. Basic one works just as well. And then there are lots of times where you need to measure out larger quantities of liquid. So like if you're using milk, when you're using things like buttermilk or oil or dairy product or liquid ingredients, which are often down in milliliters, you need what we call, well, these are also called measuring cups, but then as you can see, they are different from these ones because these ones have measurements for measuring liquid. So like this one measures in milliliter, but there are some times where you want to measure in cups or in pints. So get ones that have multiple markings because then whatever your recipe says, you're able to measure in that. So these are measuring cups or bigger ones, measuring jugs. Now, these are stuff that I use in my kitchen. These are basic kitchen stuff. So you don't have to buy expensive ones. And these are the tools that you need for weighing. So that's the first category of things that you need. I would say recommend that you get every single one of this. So as a recap, weighing scale, measuring cups, measuring jugs, measuring spoons for weighing your ingredients. Okay, so when you're weighing your ingredients, when you're creating your cake batter, you need to put it somewhere. And then this is where your measuring bowls come out. The ones for baking are often quite handy where they are nested, so you have different size. So I would recommend that you buy something like this because you need quite a few measuring bowls. If in any baking session, you might end up using 2 or 3 or maybe even more bowls. And certainly when you are decorating your cake, making your buttercream, you'll find that you need multiple bowls. So get stuff like this. Or sometimes if I'm doing, like say I'm making a buttercream cake and I'm using lots of different, I'm making different colors, I will sometimes use some of my glass bowls, some of my bowls that I use for food storage in my kitchen and use that as well because you might end up needing quite a few. So those ones, if you can use the ones that you have in your kitchen, but have some for baking. And I would say just use them only for baking, particularly if you're using plastic. Now, plastic ones are more common and they're more handy, but as you know, plastics can retain smells and stuff like that. So actually, you don't want to be using this for your regular cooking because actually sometimes that can, if you use it to make some food that is strong smelling, the smell may not fully come away and may transfer into your cake. So buy one of these sets and just only use it for your baking. So I have bowls in plastic and I also have it in glass. It doesn't really matter which ones you use. I use both. if you watch my tutorials, and you should. Why aren't you watching my tutorials? If you really want to learn how to make amazing cakes and learn how to decorate, and you're a beginner and you've not subscribed to my channel, you are certainly missing out. So hit that subscribe button now, so that you don't miss out whenever I post any tutorial, and make sure that you turn on the notification bells. So I use a glass bowl because actually it allows me to see better what I am doing, but whichever one that you get works quite well. Hello, let me just... Yeah, if you got any questions, drop a comment. Even if you are watching this replay, drop a comment. If you're just joining, I'm doing a session where I'm opening up my kitchen and showing you all my baking tools so that you have clarity on what you need to get in your baking kit to get started, so you're not buying stuff that you don't need and you're not wasting money unnecessarily. And I mentioned that I have a guide which I created for you, which goes into all the details and gives you a nice summary, and it's handy to have going forward. It's only $7 and it will save you hundreds of dollars. So make sure you grab your copy. It's showing up in the link. So that's there for you. Okay, so we started on talking about the tools for making your actual cake. We've talked about the weighing instruments. We're going on to the bowls. So the bowls, you're going to mix your ingredients in. This is a sieve. It's the cheapest type of sieve that you can get. You just buy where you buy your kitchen stuff. Don't spend too much money on it, and it's quite useful because there are some ingredients that you need to sieve. Like if you're using cocoa powder, you should always sieve your cocoa powder. And then there are some cake recipes that will ask you to sieve your flour. So a sieve is useful to have. Again, buy one specially just for your baking. Don't be using the one that you use in your kitchen, because with those ones, again, you get little bits of food getting stuck in and things like that, which kind of, you don't want that in your cake. And they're not expensive at all. So buy one and keep it just for your baking. So you've measured your ingredients, you've got the bowls where you're going to put it in. The next set of tools that you need is you need to be able to mix them. So you need stuff to mix. Now, it's a common myth that people always think that you need to have like a big stand mixer. Like I have the stand mixer, so my stand mixer is over there. It is perhaps actually, let me think about it. Yeah, it is the most expensive baking tool that I have. They are not cheap. And certainly I would not recommend you buy a cheap one, but they come in handy. And if you are sure that you want to bake and you really want to get on, then having a stand mixer is invaluable, but it's not absolutely necessary. In fact, I've been baking for decades, and I only bought my stand mixer during the lockdown. So that would have been the end of 2020. So, it took me that long before I invested in a stand mixer. So you don't have to, you can manage just as well without a stand mixer. So I would actually put a stand mixer into the category of nice to have, not absolutely essential, because you can bake a cake without a stand mixer. But we'll come on to that in a little bit more. So what are you going to use to mix your cake? I would recommend that you grab yourself a hand mixer. These are invaluable and so handy. With a hand mixer, and again, they don't have to cost a lot. If you look on places like Amazon, you can get it for about, I think, £40, £45, something like that works very well. Mine is a Kenwood. Um, Make sure that you buy a good brand and they're not expensive. You don't have to splurge and buy the expensive one like a KitchenAid, although those are fancy and very nice to have and probably work a bit quicker, a bit faster because the motors, that's where the difference are. The more expensive brands have better motors, so they mix things up quicker and a bit more effective. But a standard one works as well. And this one is new. I've only bought it at the end of last year because the one that I had, which I have had since I started baking like 2023. Oh, I'm showing my age now, which I started using ages ago. Only just died last year. So it lasted me that long and it cost me £10. And it lasted. It wasn't the most efficient, but it worked well. So if you are new starting out your baking journey, then you don't have to get a super expensive one. Just buy one that you can afford. It will help you, particularly when you are making your buttercream, because if you are trying to make buttercream using the alternative, which is using a whisk, and this is just a standard kitchen whisk or spatula, it needs a lot more elbow grease and you get a good arm workout doing that. And actually it can be off-putting. So if you're making things like buttercream and just for general purposes, especially to making like bigger cakes, then having a simple hand mixer will help you as well and make the process less tedious. So that's actually, let's put that back here. So that is, I would put that into essential tools to have. And then these are the other tools that you use. A whisk for whipping up things, whipping up egg white, egg yolks, and then there are some parts of the cake recipe where you need to whip it up. And then a spatula. You use this for both for mixing. If you are like when you're doing your buttercream, if you are coloring your buttercream, you use spatulas for scraping down the bowl. So actually, you probably will end up having quite a few spatulas, big ones, different size, because they are so very useful. But you don't need to buy that many. You just need one, like one big one. For scraping your bowls and things like that. But then you will find that eventually you probably will need more than one. So, because for example, like if I'm making a buttercream cake and say I'm coloring 4 or 5 different colors, then I find that if I have only one spatula, then if I've done like a mixed blue and I've got to wash it and then mix the red and then wash it, mix the green, that's a bit of a faff. So actually that's why I have different collections. Personally, I prefer the one-piece silicone because they're more durable. Like this one is my favorite because it's like literally there are no seams, because what tends to happen is they start to come off when they have a join. So yeah, you could buy expensive ones, cheap ones, doesn't really matter. Just buy functional, and you will find that over time, just naturally, you will end up with more than one, but you only need to buy one to start off with. And then a whisk, get a sturdy one. Get a sturdy one that whisks properly. But this is like your box standard one that you might have in your kitchen. And actually, I use this for baking. I also use this for pancakes and other purposes in my kitchen. So these are the tools that you need to mix your cake ingredients. So we pop that aside. And the last essential tools that you need are your baking pans. Now, the question I'm often asked is, how many baking pans, baking tins do you need? Because I don't know if you've seen my video where I talked about how many cake pans I had. I think at the time I had 22. It's probably about 27 now because I just keep collecting. But you actually don't need that many. You just need a couple. So first of all, you've got to decide what size cakes that you're making. I would recommend that you start off with smaller sizes and then you work your way up. So, ooh. Yeah, so cake tins, if you're just joining us, we are talking about tools, all the tools that you need for cake decorating and for baking. If you've got any questions, drop it in the comment section. Even if you're watching this on the replay, I answer all questions. And also grab my guide, which is a useful tool for you. It's got shopping lists. It's got all the stuff that we're talking about today. It's only $7. And for the amount of hundreds of dollars that it's going to save you, it is so worth it. So grab your copy. So this is a small one. This is a 4-inch. Probably don't start with that. I would say start with a 6-inch. Because that's a good size cake, not too big, not too small, and an 8-inch cake. Okay, so those are probably the only two sizes that you need to start off with. If you are new and you're buying your first cake tin, this is where you should splurge. Cheap cake tins, they work, but they don't work as well. That is the honest truth. And sometimes the reason why your cakes are coming out burnt, brown, the cake has a big volcano dome and not quite right, is actually could be your cake pan, because cheaper cake pans don't tend to heat evenly, don't tend to heat as well. So sometimes they might be a struggle. So if you're buying them first time, buy good quality ones. I would actually recommend that you buy professional standard ones. So just Google wherever you live and look for a actual website that sells cake things and buy from there, because then you'll be getting professional ones. And these are something to buy once, spend as much as you can, buy good quality ones. They will last you a lifetime. I've met some baking buddies who are in like their 50s, 60s, and they have the cake tins that they started baking with like 50 years ago, because they last. They are virtually indestructible if you look after them. So this is where you should buy ones, buy quality that's going to last you a lifetime. Now, this, you see, this is what I call like a one piece. I would recommend getting ones like this, and also getting the lighter colored one. There's a science to it, but I'm not going to go into that in detail. But basically, lighter colors bake slower and bake more evenly. So I recommend getting something like this. If you actually look at like other stores, not dedicated to cakes, like just your supermarket or a home goods store, you're more likely to see these ones. They are darker colored, and these are spring-form tins because they have a loose bottom. On it. These are called spring-form trays. These are actually more common in like supermarket stores and stores where you buy your home stuff and kitchen stuff. And actually, they're not really the best. They work okay, but if you had a choice, don't buy this. The only time I think these are quite useful if you are making things like cheesecake or souffle, something like that. This works well. Otherwise, nah. Don't buy this firsthand. But if this is all that you have, then it would work. You just need to know how to line it and things. But if you check in my videos, I've talked about it quite a lot, so I can show you how to make this work. So you can look at all my videos. And if you haven't subscribed, why don't you just help me and click that subscribe button, because I post videos every week, sometimes twice a week, and lots of shorts. So if you are subscribed and you turn on the notification button, then you will be notified as soon as I post any videos. Like, for example, my live, if you are subscribed, then you would know exactly when I went live. And don't forget to grab your guide. It's only $7 and it will save you hundreds of pounds. It is showing just at the bottom in the description section. So grab yours now. So yeah, these are the only two that you have, and then you can then start to get different sizes. I have up to a 10-inch, and then recently I'm into square cakes, so I have a square pan, and it can go on and on. So these are the essentials, true sizes at 6-inch or 8-inch, but you can get square ones if you want. I have a loaf pan, so if you're making like bread or a loaf cake, you can have that as well. Then I have a brownie pan, so these are shallower and more designed for making brownies, so that's handy as well. But again, these are later on, and I'd recommend that you only buy what you need, and then based on how you go, you can then decide to buy other pans, and your collections can invariably grow like mine has. There are lots of cake pans available. There are some novelty cake pans, like if you want to make like a football shaped cake, you can actually get a cake pan that looks like a football. I personally try not to buy those ones, because if I'm only going to use a cake tin once, then to me it's a waste of money. You may not feel that way, but I don't want to have a cake tin that I'm not going to use. So things like the numbers, I don't buy them, because if my child is 1 year old, it's only ever going to be 1 year old. You see what I mean? And then I'm stuck with a cake pan that I can never use. So I mean, everyone's different, but that's just the way that I judge things. So because with cake pans, you can get carried away and end up wasting a lot of money buying things that you're going to only use once. So for me, I ask myself, if I'm only ever going to use it once, I think really, really carefully about it. Sometimes it's worth it. Like when I was making my husband's 40th birthday cake, I bought some stuff that I only ever used once, but that was worth it because I went all out and made him an awesome cake. But if it's worth it, fine. But think about it in that sense. Is it really worth buying this particular thing? The other thing you should get is cupcake trays. If you're going to be making cupcakes, then having a cupcake tin is vital. You can get metal ones. I also have a silicone one. My preference, metal, because silicone ones, imagine that filled with cake batter and you're trying to pick it up. You need to put like a tray underneath it to keep it stable. So I don't particularly like the silicone ones, but they work just as well. And then if you're going to be making cookies, then you need cookie trays and tins. I end up having loads of them. You only need one. My recommendation is buy the biggest one that you can, because then you can fit in more cookies and more pastries, and actually that saves you on space. And then eventually, if you know that you really are into making pastries and cookies and you need more than one or two, then you can add them up as you go. So you're starting to get the gist of things, that actually it's best to start off with the absolute essentials. Then based on your likes and your wants, you can then start to scale up and buy more and more things. And that's the way that you save money. Knowing what the essentials are and then adding things on as you go. What else? This is a pie. This is a pie tin and smaller tins. So I have loads of tin. That's the reason why I have loads of tin, but you don't absolutely need that. Okay, just a few more ingredients, not ingredients, tools in the baking section that are quite handy to have. An egg separator is useful. This is just a standard one that I have on. It actually comes with the. It comes as a set with the measuring cups. So that's something to actually look out for. If you're buying measuring cups, buy one that has an egg separator because a lot of them have egg separators, so they work as well. You use it for separating your egg whites and your egg yolks. A palette knife. So this, I would put this in the essential groups. You will use this to, when I'm removing my cake from the cake tin, to loosen the edges of the cake. I'll put videos in the description section so you know exactly what I'm talking about, but these are quite useful and handy as well. And a pastry brush for brushing and putting butter into your cake tins and your cake pans, and if you're making pastries for egg wash, things like that. This is useful to have. A scissors for you cut stuff. You're cutting your parchment paper, cutting cling film, cutting shapes. So this is just the standard kitchen scissors. Just any old one will do. I use the same thing for my general kitchen. Ice cream scoops. These are quite handy. Some people use these when they are scooping batter into cupcake tins. Then use that. And a cake tester. Now this is called a cake tester. It's basically just like a metal bit, but these are used for testing your cakes if they're done. So rather than using like a toothpick or a cocktail stick every time, you can use this. So these are the tools that you need for baking. As you can see, you don't need a lot of expensive tools at all. You can just get started with quite a few basic tools. A zester. This is like a grater, and you use this for if you're making lemon zest or citrus zest. If you're grating spices, if you're using whole spices, like if you're using nutmeg, things like that, you use a grater. And this is just the same grater that I use for grating my carrots and cheese, so you don't need to buy a special one. And that's all the tools that you need for baking. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, if you are watching this as a replay, just drop it in the comment section. And if you're on the live, say hello or ask any questions. And we're going to go on and look at the tools for cake decorating. Now, this is where things can get pretty wild and pretty crazy, because you can end up buying loads of stuff. And actually, the things that I've ended up having to give away have been my cake decorating tools. I don't think I actually gave away any of the tools that I have for baking, because with that, I've been more intentional about them. And once you have the things what you need, there's less temptations to buy a lot more. The only area where you can get carried away is the baking tins, but it's easier to kind of catch hold of yourself, because those ones are not as expensive, and they're more expensive, and you kind of think, do I really need this? When it comes to cake decorating tools, that's where you can go wild. And this bit is the most important bit, because this is where I'm going to save you money. And also just get the guide. Get the guide. I have shopping lists, so you can actually tick and be more intentional and focused. It's only $7. And for the amount you're going to save, I think it is worth it, because you're going to save yourself a lot more money by having clarity, so that you're only buying the stuff that you actually need. Okay, so the first tool I'm going to showcase is a turntable. This is a professional turntable. It's a bit more expensive. Do you need to get something like this straight away? No. You can start off with a simple plastic turntable. Yes, the spin and the way it moves may not be as smooth, but it would work perfectly. So yes, you can splurge, but you can start off with basic ones. They work as well. And this one, I think I got it 4 or 5 years ago. So again, I've used the plastic ones for ages. I'm not sure if I still have that. I gave it away, but this is what I use now. But whatever you do, you need a turntable. Let me tell you why. When you're decorating your cake is a round structure. If you are trying to decorate without a turntable, you're going to have to be moving your cake. And the way that you smoothing buttercream, you need to smoothen all sides evenly. So you need to be spinning it as you decorate. If you don't have that motion, it becomes incredibly difficult and frustrating. So if you are decorating and you don't have a turntable, listen to me. Don't do that to yourself. You're just making things hard for yourself. It is difficult. It's difficult. Go and buy a turntable. You can get it off. I'm not going to mention all these names, but literally you can get it pretty cheaply. It's better than nothing. So you definitely need a turntable. You also need, this is a angled palette knife. It has an angle. So unlike the straight one second. So a straight palette knife, this is also used for decorating, but trying to, actually, let me use this one. So this is going to be our pretend cake. Trying to put buttercream on the top and the sides with a straight palette knife is tricky and difficult. With the angled palette knife, you see, you can smoothen it. It's easier, more ergonomic to have. So this is a smaller size. This is actually my preferred angled palette knife, mainly because I tend to make 6-inch, 8-inch cakes. So that works well. If you're making larger cakes, or if you find that these ones are too small, they can go up in many, many sizes. So again, buy the size that suits what you need, and you might end up having more than one. I think I have 2 more somewhere, but I've not got them out. But whatever size that you have, you get, you need a palette knife, because you're going to use this all the time for applying your buttercream or for ganache. So it's absolutely essential. Even if you think you're only doing fondant, remember your fondant, you have to cover it with buttercream or ganache or something. So for your cake decorating, you need an angled palette knife. And then for buttercream, you need a buttercream smoother. So let me create some more space, get rid of some equipment, and then I'm going to bring the box that has all my cake decorating tools. So don't forget, if you are watching this on a replay and you've got any questions, just drop it in the comment section and I will be sure to answer all your comments. You can be absolutely sure of that. And if you haven't subscribed, I would really appreciate your subscription and turn on all the notification buttons so that you know when I drop a new video. Okay, let's create some more room. Right, what have we got in here? So this, I tend to put my decorating stuff in bowls, and that's another thing. The more stuff that you buy, the more stuff that you have to store away. And my husband always says that my cake stuff takes over. I have a whole full stack. No, two full stacks full that take all my baking, but it's all good. Yeah. Okay, so smoothers. I have 3. The reason I have 3 is because it took me a while to kind of figure out which ones that I liked. Initially, I started off with this, and then I brought this one because it's slightly taller when I was doing taller cake, and then this one is even taller. Personally, I prefer this one's my favorite. This one, let's sew, but again, just this is one thing where you just have to figure out which one that you like the most. And so you use this to smoothen the buttercream on your cake. So imagine if this is your cake, you use the buttercream smoother to smoothen your cake. Don't worry, all the techniques, if you're not sure about them, they're all on my YouTube channel. So subscribe and check out the videos. So if you want to get a smooth finish on your buttercream or your ganache, then this is what you use. It's called it has different names. It's called a buttercream scraper. Some people call it a smoother. Some people call it a French scraper. That's what it means. Pro tip, think about the size that you want and buy one that is the right size. So if you think you're going to be making tall cakes, then buy a tall one, or you can do what I do and have one tall and one shorter one, because it's not as easy to do. So if I'm making like a cake this size and I'm using this, it's not as ergonomic, whereas with that is fine. And I have even smaller ones, so this is much better if I'm using this on a 4-inch cake. Can you see that works much better than using these huge ones? They don't work as well. So that, yes, so this is one of my bigger palette knives. So angled palette knife. And don't forget to grab your guide. It's only $7, and it's a comprehensive guide talking about all this stuff that I'm talking about today, and also giving you links of where to buy. Don't worry, it won't cost you any extra money, but you can be sure that you are buying the right things. So where I've bought my stuff, you can buy it from there, and you have a shopping list, so you can be really, really intentional and focused with what you're buying, and you'll save yourself time and money. You're not going to be buying stuff that you don't need. So these are acrylic discs. They're quite useful when you're decorating, so that you can get nice smooth edges. So they come in pairs. And because I like doing buttercream cakes quite a lot, I have them like that. And I also have square cakes. Like I said, I'm into square cakes lately, so I have that. These are not essential. These are good to have if you want that, and if that's the technique of getting smooth edges that you prefer, but they're in no way are they essential. And I think that is literally all that you need to get started with buttercream. So you need your turntable, you need your angled palette knife, and you need your buttercream smoother. That's your basic essential tools. that you need for buttercream decorating, and then you can add on other stuff as you go ahead. And I'm just going to continue having a look to see other things. Right, I think the rest of this just falls into general cake decorating. So we're just going to have a look and see. So this is a stencil. So stencils are nice if you want to do fancy decorating with buttercream or with ganache. You can apply that. When you take it off, you see the pattern on there. Invariably, if you're going to be decorating your cakes, you're going to want to be putting fancy designs. You can paint with you can paint on buttercream, you can paint on fondant to decorate in color. So you will need brushes. Eventually, you will gather up quite a number of different brushes, different size. Like, honestly, if you don't know, cake decorating actually is a very creative outlet. You can really truly express yourself. Like, in school, I never really got into painting. Like, I thought I didn't like art. But with cake decorating, I actually realized that we all have artistic part of us that is just bursting and waiting to come out. So if that's you, you can express yourself with cake decorating. So buy food safe brushes. And it goes without saying, only use them for your cakes. The reason why you want food safe is because the bristles are perfectly designed for food. They're not going to shed and they're not going to leach harmful stuff into. So brushes, and then because I like to do painting, I have like a palette so that when I'm making edible food paint, I can make different ones all at a go. And these are handy to have. These are particularly useful if you are making fondant. So let me make some space, and then I think a lot more of the tools are all for fondant making. Don't forget, if you are watching this as a replay, be sure to, actually I don't think I need this yet, be sure to ask me any questions in the comment section. I make sure I reply. And subscribe. So let's keep going. Okay, let me be a bit more intentional. I'll come back to this in a second. I'm just going to talk a bit first about fondant. So the essential tools that you need for fondant decorating. So you need the tools that I've talked about for buttercream, and those tools also apply as well if you are making decorating with ganache. With fondant, you need a non-stick mat and also like a cutting mat, because with fondant, invariably you're going to end up cutting it into shapes and sizes, and you need a surface to do all of that on. Because if you try and do it on your work surface, chances are you're going to cause damage to your work surface, and you don't want to do that. So you need a surface to roll your fondant on, and fondant does stick, so you need a non-stick surface. So you can get something like this. There are other, I can't find it at the moment, but you can get like big flexible silicone mats as well for that. Rolling pin. I think this one's a wooden rolling pin. That's more for baking. That falls under the baking section. So if you're making things like pastries or cookies, use a wooden rolling pin for that. But these are not great for fondants because your fondants stick to that. If you are working with fondant, what you need is a silicone rolling pin, because these are non-stick and your fondants won't stick to them. So you need a silicone rolling pin. You also need smoothers. Now, there are two types of smoothers. One of them is not in this box. Oh, and this is just another size. Now, these ones work okay for rolling your fondant, but actually they're not the best. If you find that fondant is your preferred method of cake decorating, you will start to quickly discover that with these ones, if you're rolling out big amount of fondants to cover, like say, bigger cakes, these ones, they hurt your arms and they just don't work as well. Then you might want to invest in professional grade rolling pins, because those are more ergonomic and they require less elbow grease and they work quite well to avoid strain on your back and on your arms if you work with fondant a lot. But I don't do fondant a lot. My preference is buttercream and ganache, so I don't often make a fondant cake, so that works as well, the larger ones, when I'm rolling out the fondant that I'm going to use to cover the cake. If I'm doing more fondant decoration, which is more what I do, then a smaller one works as well. Okay, yeah, so these are fondant smoothers, and you use this, where is my cake? 1 second. So when you've put your fondant onto your cake, you use the smoothers to smooth the sides and the top of your cake. So some of them have like a round edge, some of them are straight. You probably will end up needing two, because there's certain times to get a sharp edge, you need to sort of pinch the fondant in between both of them. So having at least two is quite useful. But if you're going to be baking with, not baking, you're going to be decorating with fondants, then you definitely want to get the smoothers. And then flexi smoothers. So to really get, these are just flexible sheets. Don't worry, if you're wanting to upscale, upgrade, and get some of the stuff, if you get my guide, it's only $7. I put in links of where I've got stuff from, so you know that you can get stuff that is actually quite good. So it's only $7 and it will save you loads of money. So make sure that you grab yours. The link is showing up in the description section, so you can just shop it direct and it will be delivered to you directly. So these are flexi smoothers. I would put this as essential to have. And then the last thing that you need is a craft knife, a really, really sharp knife, so that you can use that to cut off excess fondant. Now, you can use a sharp kitchen knife for that. But it's also useful to have a craft knife, because when you're going to be making fondant decoration, and if you're decorating a cake with fondant, that just putting and draping the cake is just the start. You want to make it look good. Add decoration, add things, you're going to end up cutting shapes, cutting designs. So a craft knife is specially designed for that, has a very nice sharp edge, and it's more ergonomic. It actually looks like a scalpel. And I will tell you something, because I'm a surgeon. In my day-to-day life, I'm used to using a scalpel, so I just actually buy scalpels to use. Yeah, this is a scalpel that works as well, although the blade is smaller. But yeah, you need something to cut. And basically, these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the basic tools that you literally need to get started with fondant decoration. So you can start to see that actually for everything, both baking, decorating, you don't need a lot of tools to get started. So if you've been put off starting your baking journey, cake decorating, because you think I don't have all these expensive tools, you actually don't need expensive tools. You only need few things to get started, and then you are good to go. So this is why this video is very useful. So okay, so let's move some stuff out of the way and continue to explore all the other things. So from here on, everything else is more part of the useful to have. And again, it all then depends on what you want to be doing, will then guide what extra things that you need to get as you go along. So if you are going to be decorating with fondant, then you will need your fondant modeling tools. So these are tools, and these ones, they're not expensive. These are, well, they vary from being expensive to not being expensive. If you're only doing occasional fondant, then you can buy the cheap ones. And then when you are sure that you really like fondants, then you might find that they're not working as well as you need, and then you can upgrade to professional ones. And the good thing about baking and cake decorating tools is there's always somebody that is starting their journey. So a lot of my tools that I bought when I first started, they were cheaper and they were okay because actually they worked well for the state that I was at. And then when I wanted to upgrade, I just sold it to people in my baking groups on Facebook. So, or gave it away to people who started baking. So they will never go to waste. You need those. What else? Oh, this is a fancy cutter that is meant to cut and give different edges. I use this because I have it, but actually it's probably not useful. This is one tool that I bought that I just think, why did I buy it? Because actually using a pizza cutter to cut, that's another thing that you can use to cut your fondant, works even better. So this is one of those tools that I bought that is just, I use it because it's there, but it's actually not so useful. So yeah, these are Sugarcraft tools. Well, we've got another big brush. This is quite a nice one. So if you're going to be applying luster dust, then you need a bigger brush. But I have all different sizes for painting. So for painting on fondant and on buttercream and ganache. This is a dowel. I have other dowels. So dowels are essential. These are just like plastic rods. So when you're making tall cakes, or definitely if you're making tiered cakes, you will need a dowel because that helps keeps your structure. So they're kind of essential, but it all depends on exactly what you are making. So let me say that you need them. So for tall cakes and for tiered cakes, you definitely need cake dowels. This is another palette knife. This has a tapered edge. Have I ever used this? Not yet. This is useful for doing, like if you're the reason I bought this is if you're doing abstract painting or design of buttercream, or putting on fondant, buttercream flower design, that's useful. But again, I've seen that was popular a few years ago. I bought it and I have never used it, but I kept hold of it because I think, well, one, it's Ateco, so that's a posh, nice brand. If you Ateco is ATECO is a top brand. Where possible, I try to buy their brand for a lot of my cake decorating because, well, especially the ones that I think that I'm going to use quite a lot because they last well. But this is something that I bought that just I haven't used. Oh yeah, these are, I will leave this for later because I'm going to talk about tools for piping, specifically buttercream piping. So we'll leave that for there. And then just bits and bobs, edible glue, food coloring paintbrush and coloring. Yeah, you will amass a ton of food coloring. I have a whole tub full of food coloring because, you know, you're not going to be making basic white fondant cake or plain buttercream, white buttercream. You're going to be adding color, pizzazz, jazz. Yeah, this is all my food coloring, and you'll amass a lot. I have a full video on a guide to cake coloring. Actually, it is one of my most popular videos. I will put the link later on in the description section. So if you're watching this as a replay, or if you're live, come back to it, or just search my channel. You'll find that there, where I go into details about food coloring. Okay, let's put stuff back. So let's have a look. So this one is, there are a lot of stuff in here that actually I hardly use. So yeah, like a pizza cutter. So that's good for cutting fondant. A ruler. So that's handy. This is very, very handy for measuring when you're measuring things, when you want to see how much fondant that you need. So getting a ruler. This is just a standard ruler. You don't have to buy fancy ones. Oh, cupcake liners. I have the silicone ones. This is what I first started with, these ones. They're smaller, they're flexible. I keep them because if I'm making a big batch, so if my kids are going to camp or they're having a bake sale, and I need to make loads of cupcakes, rather than buying in lots more big cake tins, because those take space to store, I will use these. So they're quite nice and handy to have, and they're not very expensive. Cupcake liners, I always have loads of them. More food coloring. Oh, these are cutters, so fondant cutters. Now this is where you can go wild, because if you can think of any shape, there is a cutter for it, and you can go wild. I think I gave away 90% of my cake cutters, because a lot of them I bought specifically for like my kids. You know, at some point they were really into Spider-Man, so I had Spider-Man cutters. Then they like transport, I bought transport cutters. And they like football, I bought cutters. So they're not expensive to buy, and actually they save you time if you want to make a specific decoration. But if you're not making cakes for people and just making cakes as a home baker, then you might have stuff that you use once and never again, which is okay. You can just give it away or sell it. Cookie cutters. So these are good both for cutting out cookie shapes and also for cutting circle fondant. Piping bags. I will leave this when I do. The last thing I'm going to do is piping. These are letter cutters for cutting out fondant, so for names and things like that. So that's quite useful to have, because oftentimes if you're making a cake, you will likely put happy birthday Darren, happy birthday Adam. So those are quite useful to have. What else do I have in here? Flower nails. Yeah. Flexi smoothers. Another pastry brush. Ooh. Spirit level. Now this is just a standard spirit level that you buy from a DIY store, but they're quite good. When you stack your cake, you want to make sure that your cakes are level. So that's what I use this for. Like I said, I just bought it from a DIY store, and that's good. And I only ever use it for my cakes, so they live in here. Thermometer. So this comes in handy. There's certain things that you make that you need to make sure you have accurate temperature. So like if you're making Swiss meringue buttercream, those sort of things, or honeycomb, anything that you need to get to the right temperature, then you need a thermometer. You can use, if you've got one in your kitchen already, then you can use that as well. And that's about it. We have more piping bag, so I'll put that on there. And the last thing I'm going to do is talk about buttercream piping, because that's actually quite a useful thing to be able to do. Oh, I'm finding stuff. Cake boards, yeah, they're not really tools, but they're equipment, they're essential. So these are what you stack your cakes on. You need a cake card and a cake board. If you're not sure of the difference, I have a video where I go into details about the difference of cake cards and cake boards. Hopefully I remember, and I'll put it in the description section. Aha. Oh, and then parchment paper. That's not a tool, but it's an equipment. So you can either, this is for lining your cake. So because I make 6-inch and 8-inch cakes, I have free cuts in 8-inch and 6-inch to line my cake tin. But you can always create your liners just from normal parchment paper, which I sometimes do, and I have videos where I show you how to do that. Okay, so piping. So you need piping bags. If you're working buttercream, you need piping bags, because sometimes, even if you're not doing buttercream flowers, just piping buttercream designs, you use piping bags. And then you will need your nozzles. This is another area where it gets really, really wild. This is just a small selection of the piping tools that I have, and I have loads, different size. Again, start with the basic ones. I think I'm actually going to, one day I put it as a note to myself to do a dedicated session on piping tools. See, that's something I should do. Anyway, so you can go out. You can go loads and loads and loads. Again, depends on what you want to be doing. Big sizes, small sizes. So these are all. And trust me, I have more than this. How many do I have? Loads. But then I like piping, so it's worth it. But if you, yeah, this is something where you can go a bit crazy. But you don't need that many piping tips, unless of course you, like me, you like to work with buttercream. Then you'll just gather them as you go. So you need piping bags and piping tips, and then also these took me a while to find out. These are couplers, and I've talked about couplers before on my website. If you got this far and you're watching as a replay and you've not subscribed, you are missing out. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel. So these are couplers. So these allow you attach this to your piping bag, and these allow you to switch your piping tips using the same bag. So imagine if this coupler, so rather than loading the piping tip onto the bag, you load the coupler on. So imagine you fill this room, say, with blue buttercream, and you want to use that to do different designs. If you put the piping tip directly, you can't take it out. You have to then create multiple blue bags to have all the piping tips. But if you put a coupler here, once you're finished with that piping tip, oops, you just take that off, put on the next one, put on the next one, put on the next one with the same bag. So these are, and then they're not expensive at all. So if you are doing any buttercream work, then these are very, very useful to have. I have them in two sizes. This is a smaller one, and then I've got bigger ones somewhere, which I use for my larger sizes. So if you're doing buttercream piping, these are essentially all that you need. And if you are going to be piping flowers, like buttercream flowers, then you need a flower nail. So you pipe on there, and then you have a, what is this called? a flower lifter, a flower scissors. Not actually sure, but you know, when you pipe your flower on it, and the reason why you need a flower nail, because when you're piping, you're turning and twisting, and then when you've done your buttercream, you just use that to lift the flower onto your surface. So that's for um, buttercream flower piping. Now, unless you want to do buttercream flower piping, then you don't actually need this. But that is that. Yeah, and piping bags, you have, these are smaller sizes and these are much larger. I think these are 21-inch if you're doing big amount of piping. And actually, I use this both for buttercream piping, but if you're making some sort of pastries and things like that, those come in handy as well. Whoa, this has been a whistle stop tour looking at all my baking and cake decorating ingredients. I have no doubt that this video has been very useful for you. Thank you for watching my live, and as always, if you've got any questions, pop it in the comment section and I will give you an answer. And don't forget to grab the guide. It's only $7 and it will save you a lot of money. Till I see you next time, happy baking, and it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.